there, this is the Sherlock Brew podcast series brought to you by Sherlock Supercoach AI. On the show, you'll find actionable insights and bite-sized conversations with HR and business leaders on topics that provoke thoughts and new paradigms to better understand and develop Gen Z and young millennials on your team. We'll help you look at new possibilities and gain perspectives to level up young professionals and help them surge ahead on your team. I would like to talk about mental health. I know this is an area that you really pay attention to as well. So could you say a few things about mental health, maybe in relationship to the workforce and in relations to the Gen Z population?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that organizations are talking about, acknowledge, and you see different type of benefits. Even like, Sherlock, the coaching piece and stuff like that. I don't think that most organizations have empowered managers to how do you weave that into conversations without passing the, being too personal boundary. I also think it requires a great deal of open-mindedness because what impacts you and how it may impact your mental health is likely different than what would impact me. I also think that people have to understand that everyone has challenges and problems or something going on. And those are going to look very different. And some of them are going to be obvious, like someone going through a medical situation, but a lot of them are not going to be obvious. In fact, they're going to be pretty opaque. And so I think sometimes it's, trying to understand what's going on in someone's life that may impact their performance on the job. It's a very delicate conversation. And if managers are not trained on how to do that or don't have the tools to enable them to do that, you're talking about different type of personality assessment, stuff like that. It becomes very difficult. And so if organizations are not focusing how managers are empowered to think about mental health and how to actually orchestrate those conversations and then what actions they're going to deploy, we're still going to circle around this. It's still going to be one of those topics that is acknowledged, but not meaningfully moving the needle on it. And I think Gen Z, I think, has put a lot of focus on this because it's a topic that's much more openly discussed now. And I think Gen Z is probably more willing to discuss it than maybe other generations. But mental health is not new, right? And so it's just becoming more, quote unquote, socially acceptable to talk about it. And so we haven't trained managers on how to talk about it. I think that's a big problem.
Perhaps what are some of the development that you may have witnessed, whether it's coaching managers to start with certain questions, or I don't know, maybe it's body language related, maybe it's more specific training program to help them kind of get in the weeds or kind of get through the opaqueness of this matter?
Yeah, I don't know if it's certain questions, but I think it comes down to, we kind of touched about it early in the conversations, how do you create that psychological safety? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what questions you ask. It's does that person sitting across from you, either physically or virtually, feel comfortable to be able to open up? And so it goes back to do you have that relationship, and are you investing in that relationship? Are you creating that psychological safety? Are you helping people understand that there are priorities outside of work? Are you creating space to have those conversations? I think that matters more than any particular question that you may be asking. And I also think you mentioned picking up on social cues and so forth. I think it's okay if someone's not being themselves or maybe not bringing the same energy they were before, but you can't just ask a big question hey, are you okay? Because the answer, again, we talked about previously, yeah, I'm okay. It's I think you have to point out what you see is different. And I think that's going to be the key. It's hey, Steve, you don't seem like you're bringing the same energy that you were before. Are you noticing that too? And if so, what are the things, that I can help you with to problems or things I can take off your plate? You identify what is the specific perception, and then you turn it into how can you be a resource for that person? And if that is combined with that relationship, then it usually leads to someone feeling the psychological safety to be able to open up and share more. And that's when you can actually truly help them.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you find it helpful. We'll soon be back with our next podcast. In the meantime, please share this episode with your friends and colleagues.